Hello, everyone. My name is JD Calderon. This is Indy Comics Explained. Yet again, I brought another fantastic group of independent comic book creators. So please hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. And once again, I got Mr. Mark. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well. This is Mark Torres from McCain Fun Radio, the official show of the Big Apple Con. I am pleased to be here on, I believe this is my third consecutive Super Bowl Sunday year show. We're alternative programming. This is great. I also have a book designated about two warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source that finds its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some human scan abilities. So, who did you wrangle, Mr. Calderon, on Super Bowl Sunday to be on our special show?
Well, what's the funny thing is you're the co-host. I invited on a co-host, and we only have one guest. Hilarious, but it is what it is, you know. So here's our co-host. So we have more hosts than we have guests, but that's fine. The guest we have is mad cool, and we may have another one coming up. So we'll see if he makes it.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yep. So, Mr. Fish, please introduce yourself.
I am Mr. Fish from Mr. Fish Comics, the fastest working man in Indy Comics. I just counted up. I've worked on 131 books in the last 7 years now, usually as like the full illustrator and letterer, colorist, the whole 9 yards. And like my 20th book, I think, that I've written and published myself. The Green Zone trade is in pre-launch right now. It's going to be going live next Wednesday, and it follows a group of mutant cops on their first shift on the force, trying to earn their citizenship back in a world where it's illegal to be born a mutant.
Cool. And our one guest. What's up?
Hey,
one and only special Super Bowl Sunday guest.
That's all we need when it's Captain Diesel.
Man, nah, stop it. Yeah, I'm Captain Diesel. What else was the prompt? I forgot. My bad. I forgot that.
Who are you?
Just introduce yourself. That's all.
Who are you?
Captain Diesel, content creator and now comic book writer and creator. My debut series Reaper is issue 1 is currently out, and then issue 2 is in production as we currently speak.
All right, cool. And look at this Joker. Why aren't you guys watching the Super Bowl?
Well, I can actually answer that question because the Seahawks beat the 49ers, so I don't want to see them win, and everybody hates the Patriots, so I don't want to see them win either. So I have no pick in this fight.
All right, I'm predicting they're gonna end up tied at some point, and it's just gonna leave that way infinitum. It's just gonna stay that way. They're gonna play for 92 hours. It's gonna be tied. So that's my prediction.
Yeah,
I don't know how to fan.
So I'm football's never been my thing. My little brother plays football. I watch his games, but besides that, I got it.
Listen,
I watched for like 2 years when my kid played because he's my size, so he was a giant too. So they recruited him onto the high school team, and he played for a little while until he realized that was just too much work and he wanted to go back to drawing. And I do know they wear pads in football, and it's the one with the pointy ball. Other than that, I have no idea.
See, Liz, you guys aren't missing anything. Anyway, it's a boring game. So it is what it is. Anyway, gentlemen, so I got the show question. This is a real, I guess it could be a complicated question because I was going through this recently. We all have books. We all have titles that we have to pick out. How do you guys go about sussing that out? Because that's the hard thing. You have to pick the title, the name of your company, right? Then you have to pick the title and name of your books, right? How do you guys go about that process? What is that process for you guys? So we'll start with Captain.
So company-wise, I didn't know the name. I published my book underneath Echelon Graphic Novels. My good friend Ethan Murphy, he had already created the company like dinner a decade. I think he started in 2013. So it's been around for a bit. So I just published underneath, so I didn't have to worry about that. As far as my book, I was aiming for the one name or thing, if that makes any sense. When you're looking at, like, again, I'm a big basketball fan, so I looked at stuff like sport, like a lot of players that were infamous. So MJ, Kobe, LeBron, these one name infamous titles that people that's really memorable. It's easy for people to remember. And also I was thinking about searchability. So if I just have one word, you type it in there, it's just easy to find. So Reaper just felt like a really cool and cold title for something, especially with the kind of tone that I have for the book in regards to a lot of the horror aesthetics for it. So it felt right, man. It felt right.
All right, Cool. Mr. Lee.
Searchability is a big thing, especially now. Like, it's funny that I just laugh because I named mine Mr. Fish Comics because I went through so many names since like high school that I was going to name my publishing company, and it was going to be like Black Raven Press and Severed Head Studios and all this different stuff over the years. But eventually, like, I couldn't come up with anything else that I really knew I wanted to stick with forever. I didn't want to, because everything I come up with in the past, eventually I outgrew. And I was like, well, I'm probably not going to outgrow my own name. So I just went with that, down and dirty, and it's working so far.
There you go. It's a good thing. But you have, see, the one good thing is like you have each of your names, Fish and Lee is just one syllable. It's very easy to pronounce. It flows off, real easy. It's not like mine.
It's short. Like Mr. Fish is easy. It sticks out. People have been calling me Mr. Fish since like high school for some reason. I don't know if it was because I was a foot taller than everybody or what, but it's what they called me, and it stuck, and it's what I've been called ever since. So I go.
So you weren't like the Muppet that always walked around with the fish?
No.
all I'm saying is Severed Head Comics would have been badass. That's all I'm saying.
It would have been. I was a slightly different guy when I was going to use that name, and I still can't show my kids. What's up, DM? I still can't show my kids the first issue of the comic that I was going to self-publish back then, the Ashcan comic that is now Alice Lost in Wonderland, my series that I do. But my kids are grown. One of them has like 4 kids. I am not showing him that book that I drew because it was nasty. I was trying to prove how grown up I was, and it's nasty.
So, gosh. So, damn. So, how tall are you?
I am 6'4.5".
Okay, that's cool.
Which, when you add on like 400 pounds, it makes me look about 7.5 feet tall.
Right. Yes.
Because I am a big old boy.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. Mr. Mark?
So there are 3 different names we're talking about in this conversation. It is the name of my company, name of the radio show, name of my book. So the radio show, we're actually going to celebrate our 24th anniversary this week. Next week on the 19th. So the original name for the radio show was called The Comic Book Novice, because the idea was that we wanted to appeal to the masses, which was the novice. So the listener was the comic book novice, and that way we talk to them as if they don't know what's going on, so they can understand the whole world of pop culture and whatnot. And then we expanded the show, rebranded it to It Came From the Radio. And at the time, I was working at a movie theater, and my the projectionist, which for you AEW fans out there is the brother of Taz, he wanted to join in on a radio show. He's like, I want to be on a radio show with you. And so we decided to rebrand the name. And there was 4 co-hosts at the time, myself and 3 other co-hosts. Because the idea was that it was going to be kind of like The View, which was going to have, different aspects of opinions of the world of pop culture. And each one of us came up with a different name. And I don't know which one of the 4 of us came up with this name. And we took the 4 names, because we worked at a movie theater. And we had a movie screening. I don't remember what the movie screening was. So we had a captive employee and friends audience for an employee-only screening. We went downstairs. Before we played the movie, we said, we have 4 names for a radio show. Pick one by applause. And that's got the biggest applause, and that's how it came from the radio. And for my company, which is MFC Studios, Michael Frank Charlie, is actually my first comic. So My First Comic Studios.
Cool. Let's see if I can suss out some of my names. So I have Dreamweaver Press, which comes from a comic book that I had originally published way back in the day called Dreamweavers, which I'm currently publishing, bringing back now, right? So I was like, I just like the name Dreamweavers, right? And what's funny is when I was a kid and I first came up, I was like 18, 19 years old, somewhere in that area. I was like, yeah, Dreamweaver's cool. That's unique, blah, blah, blah. Because I was a child, I didn't know any better. Far from the unique. There's a song called Dreamweaver, which I probably heard when I was 5. And, it probably stuck in my head somewhere in the back. And I came up with it, 10 years later was my idea. So I think that's how that came about. So it's just like, and And that's usually how these things happen. It's just grist in the middle. You're just like foaming it around in there. You're like, all right, whatever. And then Tall Tales, which is tall, regular, Tails. So it's Tails is anthropomorphic thing. Disney meets Lord of the Rings type of story, Dungeons and Dragons type of adventure stuff. So that one came about because we were looking at Robin Hood, the old Disney cartoon, and we were fans of Dungeons and Dragons and all that stuff. We figured, Tall Tales, we thought that was, a good title for that. And then what's funny is this works exactly opposite of Captain's. So the Oswald Chronicles, which is one of the main titles that I work on now, right? Which is very long, doesn't exactly flow off the tongue, but I would hear other things like, something, the Chronicle of, or the Chronicles of Narnia, I guess, and that sort of thing. And I just enjoyed that. So I was just like, okay. And then I was like, well, he's a mouse. I'm going to give him a bow tie, blah, blah, blah. Name him Oswald. And I'm like, what do I name it? Right. And I was like, the Oswald Chronicles. And that's just where that name came up. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And like, I have another book, which is a recent book called Magi's Grace. Right. And I was just like, how do I do this? Right. How do I come up with something that's going to work? Right. And I was like, well, and I was just like fumbling around with a bunch of stuff. So I was like, the main character is the two names. So it's Magi, that's the guy in the group, and there's Grace. and it's called Magi's Grace, and it's kind of like a goof because he kind of hates her. Right? Like and don't get me wrong, like this is like his in the adventures portion of it. This is like his work wife. So he loves her, but he really hates her, because she's the one that drags him into the stuff he's trying to pull out. Like he's a monster hunter, and he'll do it at his own pace, and he'll hear about things and he'll go chase things down and go do whatever. But she's the one that goes out and really gets the job. She's a mercenary. So she'll go out for hire, and she'll be like, well, let me go get my buddy across the street. Because he literally lives across the street from her, because he lives across the street from his best friend, her husband. Right. And so he thinks that she married his best friend just to torture him. So that's just part of the story. So I just came up with Magi's Grace. I was just like, all right, we'll work with that.
I had to come up with something for Green Zone because the name I had wanted to use when I started looking up trademarks and stuff was already taken for books. And so suddenly I had to scramble and think of something else. And I had logos and stuff made, and the first script all have the old name on it. And then suddenly I had to come up with something else. And so we ended up at Green Zone because all the mutants in my book, like if you're working for the city trying to earn your citizenship, you have to wear a green stripe on your uniform so they know you're a mutant, because not everybody looks like it outwardly. And they get locked away in this part of the city, which is basically like a concentration camp ghetto. And those are the green zones where everybody with the green stripes go, and we put them out there and forget about them. And so I ended up going with Green Zone. And I didn't think about it when I did it, but I was like, in my head, it's a different thing than like, say, a military green zone. So I made it one word. Making it one word has made it more difficult for it to be able to be found, because people want to do green zone instead of green zone. And I made it harder on myself. Putting a colon in the middle of it made it harder on myself to be able to find it. Then that's something that I didn't think of. So tips to anybody out there who's wanting to title a new book, make it really easy to search and to find. Like when I spelled the Mighty Caw, Kaaw, that made it that much harder to find. I wanted it to be like, a name that sounded like a crow caw, but not actually just BCAW. And that has single-handedly made that book way harder to find when people think about it, because they think CAW and type that in. So don't make it any harder on yourself than it has to be.
Yeah, but we always do. I'm sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
No, I was saying, yeah, I think I had a little bit of insight and thought process about it because I was, again, when I'm making YouTube videos, I have to think about title was like the important thing. So it's like,
Yep.
I kind of already had that in my mind as far as like how to get into an algorithm. And I figured out one word, easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's funny is Mark from Maginot Studios, he writes, we were going to be hostile graphics at first, right? And what's funny is I had run into a creator sometime in the 90s at Pittsburgh Comic-Con. He comes on the table, and I was doing some adult comic. I was writing some adult comics at the time, and he comes around, he hands me this book. He said, here you go. And he was just giving them away. He just printed too many. He was just giving them away. I was all right, cool. Let me see this. And the name of his company was called Bust a Nut Comics. And it was a squirrel holding a like you know, like a thief mask, and he was holding a nut. Like literally he was holding like, you know, a walnut. And I was like, yo, I was like, you got a second issue? I was like, I'll just take it right now. Don't even worry about it. I remember buying
That's
it.
hilarious.
Yeah, I was like busting a I was this is the best title to a comic company I've ever heard. So yeah.
I'm
those-
weak.
For those of us who are children at heart, you know. Yeah. But yeah. All right, cool. Mark, you're up.
So on the same lines of we were just discussing, the reasoning for the searchability now is because of technology. I mean, back then you didn't have to worry about that. So do you think that technology has been more helpful, or actually we'll say this, what do you think is the best thing about technology when it comes to making comics and the worst thing about technology when it comes to making comics?
Cool.
I think for me, the best thing is there's two things, at least for me in my situation. One was the ability to even find and put together a team because me being where I am now, if I didn't have the internet to help me, I wouldn't know where to even go to start to find an artist or a colorist or a letterer, let alone the amazing talented ones that I did for this book in particular, who had already worked on some previous professional stuff. So that also kind of helped me, like, as far as sell the book and be like, oh, they worked on Dark Horse, Marvel, whatever. I can attach that to it. The marketing, I think, is the biggest part for the second part because I'm an individual, and even the company I'm with, although they're an established company, it's not like we don't have the marketing dollars that a Marvel or DC would have to get all kinds of $1,000 campaigns put around. So how do I compensate for that? Well, I make YouTube videos. I understand how to put together a video to capture attention. I'll do that. And that's helped me get it around to different places or even asked to be on different platforms that would allow me to present my book to people that I may not have seen it beforehand. But the negative side of things, I feel as though you have to be more performative and very detailed to get that to happen, though, because there's so much excess in regards to comics out there. And because people, for the most part, are kind of stuck in the Cape comics, you have to try that much harder to snatch somebody's attention. And usually to think about, okay, what are people interested in that I could compare this to immediately get their attention. So just is a lot more in-depth thought process that comes, I feel like, now than back in the day where you could just find a spot to put your poster up or go word to mouth or pitch them out like CDs from back in the day. I think now it's like, it's easier, yes, to get it in front of more people, but you have to be a lot more meticulous about how you go about doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the double-edged sword of it. It's never been easier to get it out in front of lots of people, but at the same time, there's lots of stuff out in front of people. You're competing with, million-dollar companies that are trying to get their attention and algorithms that are designed to addict you to scrolling on your phone. And, it is tough to fight with that. And it's amazing that it's never been easier to like you can do digital print on demand and have a professional looking comic. And if you can't draw, you can hire somebody like me on the internet. Like, we didn't have the internet back in the day. The only reason that I became an inker or a colorist is because I couldn't find anybody in my hometown to do that, to help me out. I didn't happen to work with anybody that was a talented enough artist to help me or had any interest in it. And if you didn't know him from school or happened to work with somebody, how were you going to find that guy that, is sitting at home alone in his room inking, wishing he had somebody's pages to ink? You couldn't do it. So I hated inking so bad, but now years later, it's my favorite part of the job. And, coloring just intimidated me so bad when I started it. And now it amazes me people hire me to color books. But you know, it's amazing how much it's changed. But it's never been easier to put out amazing looking books that look as professional as anything anybody puts out. But at the same time, the negative side of that is it's never been easier to put out a book. So anybody can do it, and they can just throw AI slop in there, or they can scribble on the pages. And then I have to try and make my book stand out amongst a billion other books out there. And that's tough. Eventually, you know, if somebody picks them up and reads them and likes the quality, then they keep coming back and you slowly start to build that. But man, there's a lot to sift through to try and get noticed when you're trying to start something.
Mhm. All right, cool. For myself, I think the biggest advantage we see is a portion of what Mr. Fish is complaining about is POD printing. I think POD printing is a huge boom or boon for all of us, right, as independent creators, because you know, back when I started, bro, if you weren't printing 3,000 books, you weren't printing.
Oh yeah.
If you weren't printing 3,000 books, you weren't printing. So
they wanted 10 grand to do that first book I tried to do like 30
Yeah.
years ago. And
Yeah.
that might as well have been 10 million to me back then.
Right. I mean, I don't know what you're printing. I mean, through Brenner, 3,000 books at the time. It was color covers, black and white interiors. I don't know if you were trying to do color, but black and white at that, I don't know. I think 1,600, 1,800, somewhere in that area. You know, and if you worked it correctly, you weren't paying anything, because there was a whole system involved. Like, all right, with Brenner, they would give me a line of credit, right? And then what I would do is I would take the books and I would offer them to the distributors, right? The distributors, there were 14 of them at the time, not just one or two, but there was 14. And I would say, okay, boom, place. They would give me all of their orders. I would take those invoices, show them to Brenner. They were like, no problem. They would print the books, ship the books to those distributors. I would collect the money from the distributors, give Brenner their cut, and then I had my cut. So believe it or not, there was a system where it was quite easy. You know, you could get in and work it. It's not like, you know, now it's kind of messed up, and now it's like kind of like you have to have that money. That's why Kickstarter is important, right? Because
but again, that's a system you had to know, or somebody you know had to teach you. Like, that's not something you could just find on the internet on YouTube like you can.
Well, there was no internet.
Yeah.
There was no internet back then. So, you know, no, there was a book that I had found published by Sal Brodsky. And he was the son of another, I guess, Daddy Brodsky. I'm forgetting his name, but he worked at Marvel. But Saul Brodsky is S-O-L, Saul Brodsky. He was in publishing for a long time, and I forgot what company he was with. Solson, I think, was his. And he was doing, like, he printed some of the Teenage Ninja Turtle spin-off books, right? Like how to draw the Teenage Ninja Turtles, or how to do Kung Fu by the Teenage Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, right? But he had printed a book on how to publish comics, and all that information was in there. And I think he printed that during the black and white boom, so I picked that up, and that was like my guide, man. That was like my field guide to comics, you know. And that was like, yo, you can still find. It's funny, you can still find copies on mycomicshop.com for a couple of bucks. I would suggest everybody just pick one up, just because it will blow your mind just to see the history of what we could do as in comparison to what we can't do today.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the thing is things are somewhat easier to take. Because like I said, I had to print 3,000 books. I couldn't just, you know, now I can order 10, right? Go to 15 books and say, I just need 20 of those, you know? So yeah, so it was, yeah, it was very, like I said, it was very, very different times, but it was just, but there were mechanisms that you could maneuver, you know. So what was I saying? Right, POD printing, huge boom. The part that I don't like about technology is that we have these wonderful platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, Instagram, whatever, right? Pick one or a dozen or whatever. I think they're great, but once the companies that own those platforms, once we meaning the people, as in we, all of us, everyone who's ever participated on those platforms and built them up, because in the end, the corporations that have built them up, it was all the people who are active on those platforms that built them up, right? Just like YouTube. YouTube didn't come out of the ether. It was like, oh, we're a big set. No, it took hundreds of thousands of videos from countless people from all over the place to build that platform, right? But then what happens? They get, well, I don't want to say they get greedy. They become a corporation, like any corporation.
They get greedy.
Right. Yeah, they get greedy. So what happens is now they say, oh, well, here's an algorithm for you, right? And it's going to sort things out so that, people will see your things in certain orders as to what they like, instead of it just being there, right? And you would get 300 people seeing your posts. Now you're lucky
seeing the stuff that you followed and you click that you like and you want to see. No, we're going to make you pay for that. You pay for fans to see.
Because they want you to buy ads, right? So they're like, well, if you want that free kind of flow thingy, give me $500 and maybe we can get that going for you for 30 days. To a couple of thousand people, not the whole thing, right? So, I mean, I think that's a big difference. So I think that's the portion of it that I don't like as far as technology goes, is that they kind of have us by the short hairs. They build these wonderful platforms where you can reach a lot of people, but then they limit you as to how many people, like you say, oh, I'm friends with 5,000 people, right? I'm going to post this if 5,000 people that potentially can see it, right? No, you're lucky if 50 people see it, right? And that's after you begging 5 of your friends to like share it, So that's the part I don't like. So, yeah. Mark, what do you think?
So I think that in the old days, it was more difficult in the back end to make a book. And now I find it's harder in the front end to make the book, because as you guys are saying, it's easier to make the book, but now to get it out there is so much more difficult. So, going back to TV, when there was only 3 channels, how hard was it to get your show on one of those 3 channels? But then when it got on there, people were watching it. But now, how easy it is to get on a streaming platform. But now, how hard is it for people to find it? And so now all of a sudden you have another job of being a marketing social media guy, where that wasn't supposed to be a thing. Like, oh, I gotta hire myself again to do another job. That just makes it worse.
Because there's a lot more hours in the day I can pull from to do that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's starting. I think they're coming up with a 36-hour day. So,
man, I hope so. I have been begging for one for years.
Right, like we need more. Yeah, I mean, but listen, Mark, whenever you want to do that Roku channel, because we could all have one.
And if you think about it, the way the streamings also is, some of them came and went. You remember Periscope? That was a thing for like a hot second. And that was supposed to have been a huge alternative.
And that's the thing that frustrates me about all of the social media is, what's up, Lori? Is like, if you can get in early and, like, if you're the first guy that joins TikTok, let's say, and starts talking about comics, then you become the comic guy on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or whatever, and you can blow up really quickly if you're on there. But the problem is they start so many little things and you don't know which ones are going to take off. But unless you're there investing the time in that platform, it's not going to take off. But there's not enough time to do it all. So by the time anything starts to grow, you're pretty much too late to the party by the time it's popular.
Yeah.
To that point, I feel like a lot of things that I benefited from was, one, being as much of a student as much of a creator. That makes any sense. Before I even started writing comics, before I even started doing content on YouTube, I consumed a shit ton. Oh, can we cuss on here? My bad. I didn't mean to.
Well, it's too late now.
Okay, my bad.
Here comes the FCC fine.
That's only a $10,000 fine.
Yeah. No, listen. We say fucking shit and cut and whatever all the time.
Okay. I'll keep it PG-13 at least.
I mean, we try not to go there, but we end up
right. I watched a lot. So I watched guys like The Blood Without Fear, for instance, right, for YouTube. Like I saw the way he covered books, and I learned that it's not enough for you to have a good product. You need to be able to present your product from a perspective that is as unique as possible to you and your lived experience. So I need to be able to present my book based off of one, connecting it to other things out there. Like I know, like I'm a big fan of mythology, I'm a big fan of horror. Okay, I'll tie all that in, but also put my spin on like how I perceive the same content, so that it feels like people are getting in on this exclusive thing, or there's something that's never been seen before. Which, in reality, there's nothing new under the sun as far as storytelling goes. It's kind of like different forms and shapes of stuff that's been done before, even if you didn't know about it. But if you present it in your own perspective, people think it's brand new, it's fresh. Like, how many anime have we seen that are shonen or isekai that are popular, but, same thing, different packaging.
Yeah. Very, very true. All right, cool. Mr. Lee, you got a question?
Oh, I've got several. But since we're talking heavy stuff, I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
I've had several people in my orbit saying recently, with fairly good arguments, that it's not. So I'm asking y'all, do you think it is possible to make a profitable business just doing comics? Or do we have to have something else to offer that brings in a better profit margin to make it profitable?
To do it full time, I'd say just selling books as of now, no. More so due to the factor that you need a solid start, a foundation. And if you're starting out as a unknown publisher with unknown IP, the biggest uphill battle you're going to have is getting people to read your IP. And that's going to take a long time, which isn't really provide you with the ability to put a roof over your head or buy food, whatever it may be. So you're not going to have that overhead, which is why I think with Echelon, they not only publish books, but they also help you create your own books by connecting you with different artists, helping you write your stuff, whatever it may be. So it's like another additional service that allows us to pay for the books that we put out, as well as the other things that we do as far as the company goes. And even beyond that, you're starting to see a lot of publishers be smart as far as like offering advertisements in their book. They'll be like, all right, cool, here's my book. If you want to promote your book or promote your product, give me a certain amount of money and I'll put a page where people can see your ad in the book. So just little stuff like that I think you can add to your company to kind of give you at least a little bit of leeway in regards to getting to the point to where you can publish books full-time and that be your full-time thing.
All right, cool. Mark, what are your thoughts?
I think that it is possible because anything is possible, but not everything is probable. It's one of those things where if you look at any company, it's very rare that the company stays doing whatever it was doing. They make one thing and they're like, oh, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Because they want more money. And the way the corporations work nowadays is that you have to make more money this year than you made last year, or else you're not a successful company. But it is possible to just make one thing really good and just keep it going for as long as possible. It is possible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Damn, man. I mean, the answer is, kind of like Mark said, it's yes and no, right? It's possible. But I think what's funny though is I think we're at a point where it's more possible than it was, let's say 15, 20 years ago, right? Because you got Kickstarter, right? You have these other platforms, Fund My Comic, IGG, whatever. You understand? So where you can run.
Got a shout out Crowdfunder.
Crowdfunder, yep. There's another one where you could possibly run secondary campaigns on them if you want, or you could be like me, just run a secondary campaign on Kickstarter. Just hope they don't notice. The other thing is the direct market isn't entirely sealed off from us, right? Like, it's funny, when Diamond was the only gate to get through, it was tough to get through, but you could get through it. Now Lunar, who is essentially like their inheritor, that gate is going to be tough. I mean, that gate is going to be way tougher than getting through Diamond's gate, right? But there's Filbo distribution, right? So he's out there doing his thing, right? And he's still running, and people are having success, and he's having success, right? So that's another avenue, but it depends on how you strategize your books, right? If you're going, if you're going to go through Filbo, I spoke to one creator. He says he's selling about 300 books through Filbo. It's not a big number, right? But it's something you could build on. So if you're running a campaign and you can strategize it so you get it correctly, because it's a bit of a pain in the ass to do, so that you run your campaign, you offer it through Filbo, you get your books printed offset, right, instead of POD, so that you'll have the cost effectiveness of offset, right? Because you can get an offset book printed in China for probably about 60 cents. You can get 500 books printed for about 600 bucks. It was a standard 32-page comic, right? Nothing special, just real basic bare bones stuff. Shipping is $300 to $400. It's going to be expensive to ship it here. That's just life, but it's still cheaper to print it there than it is here. And if you need to upgrade that to 1,000 books, the cost is like an extra 120 bucks. Huh? Yeah, it's like 150 bucks extra. It's not that much more, right?
Yeah, like my first issue of Alice, I printed in China, and it was like $1 a piece for 500 copies.
Right.
And and I've sold a lot of those, a lot more of them than I thought I would have sold by now, not having any cons last year except for 2.
Right.
The last 2 I had printed here in Arkansas, and this place did a great job, and they're twice as much as China. I kind of missed that price, but it's still better than print on demand is. So, it's been working so far.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm buying 500 books, which not everybody's ready to do or going to sell that many, or,
right.
That's not something I recommend for somebody starting out on their first Kickstarter. You do not want your wife fussing at you about having boxes all over the living room or something. Right. But, I know I usually tend to hit a lot of cons and make a lot of sales, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's where the possibility comes into play. If you find, I've covered a lot of conventions, and you see people that's all they do is go to conventions every single week.
Oh, yeah.
They can make a living. It is possible just to go to conventions, sell the book each and every single place. So it can be done.
If you can do that, like, that's a whole other thing, because like physically my body cannot take going to a con every week. I don't know how some of these dudes do that, man. That's brutal.
Yeah, it is
Especially
brutal.
with travel.
Yeah. But like I was saying though, imagine, Fish, if you had printed 1,000 copies of that book, right? You got your little barcode on there, talk to Filbo, say, listen, we're going to print this, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever. Sold another 300 copies, 400 copies, right? You're not gonna make a lot of money. You're probably gonna make $2 a book, right? Or $1.90, something along those lines. But that's another, 600 bucks in your pocket, 700 bucks in your pocket, depending on how many titles, how many books you sell, right? And it also hinges on how far you're willing to carry it, because if you'll get the sales through him. There's some retailers who won't buy from him for whatever reasons. They have their own reasons. But you can reach out to retailers. There's a lot of retailers that'll buy directly from indie guys, And, the more places you can get into, the better. And the thing on top of that is the stuff I've been looking at seriously is that those sales, if you advertise that you're on Kickstarter in your own book, the people who are buying them at bookstores may seek your stuff out on these other on these platforms, to find them. Now wait a second, but you also asked, can you make a living?
Well, can you make a living with just doing comics, or do you need
right. So I only focused on that portion of it, right? Because I do think, like I said, it's gonna be tough, because obviously it's volume, right? If you're selling as an independent creator, if you're selling 5,000 books, you can. Right? If you do the direct market, you can do it. You understand? If you're selling 3,000 books, you might be able to do it, right? If you own your house already and you don't have that many bills, if you don't have a mortgage, or rent. Especially, I'm in New York, so forget about it. You know, but yeah, if you're selling 3,000 books, you might be able to make a go of it. You know, especially if you're putting out regularly, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever, you might be able to do it. But sometimes you got to sell other stuff though with that higher retail mark, right? Because I've seen a lot of campaigns try to reach certain levels, and I'm like, well, I've never seen you exceed, let's say, this many backers, right? And they're like, yeah, but I can make that number because I'm selling a T-shirt and I'm selling a widget and I'm selling, the face of my character on this button and this pin and whatever and whatever.
And I got that all covers tier that's real high that, half those whales are going to come get just so they have every cover to never open and read.
Yeah. And it's great to have those, but you can't rely on them because they don't always show up. Because I get them every now and again, and you're like, oh, that's fantastic. And then you sweat at the end, makes you, hopefully they pay. And they pay, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to get them on the next year. And they don't show up for another 2 campaigns. Right? So, I mean, at least that's how it works for me sometimes. So, I don't know. Maybe you're luckier than me. But yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
There you go. All right, cool. Actually, you know what? Let me pull up some.
I have another question for the panel if we have time.
Go ahead. Go for it.
So it was something that was the discussion that was recently brought to my attention about comic book covers, about how comic book covers have become misleading for the book, because in the old days, what was on the cover was in the book, and now it's completely a different market. So what are your guys' thoughts on having a cover that is different, or for different artists, or just not of anything that's in the book, as opposed to putting something that, hey, this is what the advertising of the book is, this is what you're getting?
That's a source.
I will say that, at least for me, it's very important at all times for every issue of a book to have some kind of connection into what's going on inside of the book. So if I have a character fighting a certain villain or going through a certain thing, I want that cover to kind of reflect that in some extent, to where you're previewing it without giving away directly what it is. I will say I do find value into different art style variant covers. At least for me, because I looked at it as me as a collector first and foremost. 9 times out of 10, if it's a book that's indie that I've never seen before, never heard of, if it's a cool cover and an art style that I like, I'm going to buy it. Because you don't really have that ability to kind of lean on the morals of nostalgia baiting. If it's Spider-Man, I can do whatever I want on a cover. People are going to buy a Spider-Man book. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. But for an indie, like if I looked at like a cover of like Roots of Madness, right, recently that Stephanie Williams has been working on with Indie Press, the covers for me are beautiful. I enjoy them. And I was like, outside of Stephanie Williams working on the book, I want to pick up the covers because that particular art style that's going on there, I find very pleasing to my eyes. So I'm like, all right, let me see what this book is about to see if it matches that. If you go 100% into the false advertising kind of realm of where you have things going on that don't happen within the book, then you kind of reach the whole territory of like clickbaiting. I guess you have a similar thing like YouTube with thumbnails and whatnot, but it's a very slippery slope. I personally enjoy the variant covers of differing styles, just so people have something, and it's almost in the same way of like you putting something out to social media, right? You're giving more chances for people to see something that gravitates that they enjoy, that they can then hop on. Because if I have 4 different covers, 4 different varying styles, 4 different types of people are going to see that may give it a chance. So they see the interior. If the interior is something they enjoy, like roughly, they'll give it a chance going forward. But if not, now you lost somebody. Personally, I feel like it's worth it just in the matter of getting your book in front of as many eyes as possible, and for give it the chance they may enjoy it, versus you just don't get that sell at all because you have one set style for a cover. At least in my mind, that's how I've thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh, see, and that's the thing. I'm an old guy, and this became a really sore spot for me before most indie comic creators were born. So I get it that it doesn't bother them as much as it bothers me, but I freaking hate variant covers. As somebody who's had a lot of variant covers on his books, I freaking hate them because because exactly like you were saying, to me, it's false advertising. Because when I would go to the store and I would, pick up a comic and it's got a Jim Lee cover on it, I'm thinking I'm getting Jim Lee book. And the thing that Marvel really pissed me off with was they would get a Jim Lee cover, you would get a Jim Lee first page, you would get a Jim Lee penciled second page, and then the rest of it was by Joe Schmo, who's getting his first gig at Marvel, and it's absolute garbage. And so I didn't flip any deeper than that. And, I was like, okay, Jim's a little off his game on the second page, but it's all right. And we'll go with it. And it was just absolute trash. And they did that more than once. And that really infuriated me. Made me swear I would never do that on my book. And then the whole freaking world changed, and you got to do variant covers to make good money on Kickstarter. I mean, some of these Kickstarters make obscene amounts of money with just so many variations of nudie covers. Like, I counted on one of these campaigns had like 85 different covers, and the vast majority of them were absolute garbage. Like, I mean, they looked like they were drawn by junior high kids, or they were like 3D models that they blew up the boobs on or something. And then you got the version with the bikini on, then you got the version with the bikini off, and then you got the version with whipped cream on there, and then you got the version, it's the metal version, and it's the same crappy drawing over and over, and then you do that over and over and over. But there's so many people buying that like $3,000 all cover tier, and I'm like, I can't argue with the numbers. I mean, that works. By the time they get all of those separate issues printed, I doubt they made a whole lot of profit on that, but they made really big numbers on the Kickstarter. So, more power to you. I have taken it as I pretty much have to do some variant covers, because there are those guys that are going to want to come through and get all the variant covers. There's not a ton of them, but there are those guys that like to do that. And I don't want to miss an opportunity by not having something for the guy that wants to come in and spend that money. So I offer it. I've gotten to the point now, especially on my own Kickstarters, where I usually do most of the variants myself. Like, I hired Seth DeMoose to do some variant covers for the Mighty Caw. And honestly, he pissed me off because they're way better than my covers, and they're freaking beautiful. And I so bad wanted to make those the main covers, because his artwork and my colors, he just popped, and it was amazing. It was beautiful, and it made mine look like trash. But I can't in good conscience make that the main cover and show that to people on my con table, for the next 2 years, knowing that the outside looks different than the inside. I can't do it. So, like, as a variant cover, I'm happy to do it, because we all know what to expect. When I go into a comic book shop now and look at a book, I know 9 times out of 10 what I see on the cover is not what's in the book. So I know to pick it up and look through it and see if it's something I want. But, the whole world's changed since it became an issue, but there's still a scab there.
For myself, like, all right, so the way I work is the interior artist always gets the A cover. Okay, so I do Oswald, and like, this is my main artist, Jay Gonzalez. That's her cover, right? I work with another gentleman. Sometimes his name's Aurelio Tillis. He gets the A cover, right? Then I'll do one other cover, and that's a B cover. And I have a bunch of different artists that I float around with. I'll use, but that's the alternative cover, and that's what that is. As far as them going with something like with the Oswald Chronicles, I tend to send those artists the interiors of the book so they can look through the book, so they can pick a scene from the book to illustrate for the cover. All right. Once in a blue moon, I'll just have a pose thing. Depends. I have one guy who is a very talented painter. His name is Douglas. He just painted a really cool image of Oswald for me, and I was just like, I'll put that as an alternative cover. Right. And it was, and it was it's a popular cover. Everybody likes it. It just looks nice. Right. doesn't really have, it's just him standing in space casting a spell. It's like, okay, just a simple cover. Whereas Jade's cover has something to do with the story. Most of the other guys that I have do these covers, or gals, it's something to do with the interior of the book when it comes on the Oswald Chronicles. Then I do Dreamweavers, Magi's Grace, same thing. The main artist gets the cover A, and then everybody else, I'll bring everybody else on. Then I have a bunch of other artists that I bring in. But like Mr. Fish said, those tend to be good girl art, bad girl art, nudes, that sort of thing. And that's literally there because I'm trying to like feed the beast, because the books are expensive to produce. Mr. Fish is drawing his. If I drew my books, nobody'd ever buy them. They would just be like, just go back to doing prose,
After this many books, you would have to be getting pretty decent. Like, you put out a lot of books.
I put out a lot of books, yeah, but I like writing them. I mean, I don't know if I told you this story. When I was a kid, I was an artist, right? I started off like drawing and writing, and then around junior high school, I met this guy named Marcos. Eventually became my best friend, and he was an artist. And I saw his artwork, and I gave up. He was that good. I just gave up.
I've had people do that with me before, and I absolutely hate it.
Yeah,
like,
and I was just like,
never what I got into this for.
Because I was like, I could just write. And that's what I did. I just continued to write because that was the portion of it that I enjoyed the most. So I just continued to write. And I was like, all right, Marcos can draw. So that's how that got burnt out of my system. And very young. I was like 12 when it happened, maybe 11. So
God, you had so much room to go, dude. You could have gotten good. That makes me mad. I'm glad you stuck to the whole field, but I've had people do that with me before.
Well, now you can do a JD Calderon exclusive variant, like a stick figure.
There you go.
Let me ask a question, if you guys don't mind. This is an experience I had when I was looking for. I spent 16 hours. I counted 16 hours in total scourging the internet to try to find my artist for my book that I wanted that fit what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And I would run into this thing every time for a while where I would find this amazing cover that this artist would have done, whether they be independent or they had been somebody that worked on, the big two publishers or other publishers beforehand. Right. And they would always say, yeah, I can do the cover, but I don't do interiors. And I ran into that issue over and over and over again. It took me forever until I finally found an interior artist that fit what I was looking for and was also, within my price range. Because some people still charge you big two Marvel and DC prices that they use, and other people, they understand like, hey, it's his first book. I won't charge him that much. I mean, it may take me a little bit longer because I have other things to work on, but I won't charge him that much. Mm-hmm. But that was something I just kept running into, where it being this amazing, beautiful cover, but they don't do interiors.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is that something you guys encountered? Is that like a new thing, or is that something that you guys remember being a thing from back in your time when you were first getting started?
I remember back in the old days, you used to have the portfolio reviews, and I used to watch the big time artists talk to the up and coming artists, and they bring their portfolios, and they always just say, where's your sequentials? Draw sequentials. Nobody's just going to want a cover art. Nobody's just going to want posters. They want sequentials. So it's been like that forever. People just want to do the one image flashy thing and get paid. And now I think it's more of an issue.
Now that variant covers are such a big thing, you can make a living doing that. Yeah. And you can charge like 3 times more for that than you could ever get for sequential pages.
Yeah, and if you think about it, making a living. Can you make a living making comics? You could sure as well make a living on doing covers.
Doing covers, yeah. If I didn't love storytelling so much, I would just do that. Because, I mean, I would rather put a little more time into that and make it look fancy and make a lot more money. But I love the storytelling, man. That's where my passion is.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, like, how much people charge, like, I think Sam Vera said to me, he was like, yeah, he says, someone found a cash cow. Your artist did. They found you. Right? Because I'm constantly paying them. That's all I do. I just pay them. Right? But to your point, as far as the interior, exterior, interior artists, special group of animal people, like that's a special animal, right? Because you're going to have most artists, they're going to gravitate to doing covers, a single image, right? And I got to be honest with you, those people who do those images, sometimes you really don't want them to do the interiors because they don't know storytelling.
Mhm.
right? They might do a decent cover,
They
right?
never had to learn storytelling. They didn't
Right.
have to practice that.
Exactly, and that is an art form all in and of itself, right? Because you have take someone like Toth, right? Very very simple line work, masterfully done, but where he was really shines is his storytelling, right? You see that storytelling in there. You're like, oh wow, I'm just started reading Darwin Cook, right? I'm just starting getting familiar with his work, and you know his work is fairly simple, right? But his storytelling is very powerful,
Mhm.
right? And that's where the big difference is. Whereas, like, this is not Alex Ross level illustration or Neil Adams level illustration, right?
Mhm.
This is, I would imagine, what was it, Batman? What was the Batman cartoon?
Animated series.
Yeah, the animated series, that type of
Mhm.
style, right? Very simple. But like I said, his storytelling is very powerful. You're like, oh wow, like just in that. So it just depends, man. You like you said, you got to find the artist that fits within your price range and that can tell a story. And those are tough things. Those are very, very tough things to find someone who can tell a story well.
To
You know?
jump onto JD's point, and I'm gonna bash somebody. I don't know him. I've never met him. Actually, I have met him, but I've never actually interacted with him. Greg Horn, great cover artist.
Who is
But
it?
Greg Horn, great
Oh,
cover
Greg
artist.
Horn. Great. Oh
But
yeah.
if you've seen his interiors, you might not want to have him doing your interiors of your book. But he's a great cover artist.
Yeah.
His covers sell.
Mm-hmm. Greg Horn. Yeah, well, he was the whenever Victoria's Secret catalog came out, he had a new issue.
As an interior artist, I can definitely say you have to be like a special kind of broken to thrive in this job, because like it is mind numbing and it is a grind, and you have to be a self-starter. You have to be able to just get up in the morning, get your coffee, and sit down and start knocking out pages, and be okay doing that all day long, day after day after day after day. And as soon as you get done with one book, you don't get to sit back and enjoy it, because there's another one that has to get done, and keep grinding that out. Whereas if I just did covers all the time, I could do a nice cover and then sit back and relax, take my wife out to dinner or something, and then start another one tomorrow or the next day, whatever works. That would be nice. But I love the storytelling, and you either love it and you have to do it, or you just want to draw pretty pictures. And there's nothing wrong with just wanting to draw pretty pictures. People make good money on that. But I love the storytelling aspect. And for the comment earlier about doing magazine size comics, they are cool and I love them. But the one thing to consider is they're not going to fit with most people's like other comic collection. I bought some and been so excited about it, and then lost them because I couldn't put them in my short box with everything else I got from that con, and I don't know where they went. And so something to keep in mind.
So, Charlie, for another just a little tidbit. So, when you're looking at people's art online, look for sequentials instead of looking for a really cool one piece, and maybe say, hey, what are your sequentials before you even get into any type of negotiation for price? Do you have sequentials? That could be like the second question. I love your work. Do you have any sequentials? That way it makes the whole process easier.
Yeah.
But then it'd be, I don't have any sequentials. Okay, next person.
That's the quickest way to get to the no. If it's going to be a no, is ask that question that gets you directly there. That's a good idea.
Well, the conversations to be quick. I would ask, do you do sequential art? They say, no, I only do cover. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, to find my second artist, I think I worked with this guy for 3 years before I had him do of his first sequential page. Like, I had him do I wrote a prose story. I had him do some pinup work for that stuff, and then I did that with him for a couple years, and then I had him do a short story, like 4 pages, and then it wasn't until after that I was like, okay, we'll try it. and I broke down. I gave him like a 48-page story, and then he drew that out, and I was like, okay, cool. And now like he's in the middle. he's like up to page 150 on this story that we're working on. So
I am so glad when I tried to find a colorist to try and speed up my process because I'm not fast enough. I'm so glad I paid for sample pages because I found people with really amazing portfolio pages that they were showing of their work with amazing colors. And I was like, okay, yes, this Godzilla story that you worked on in your portfolio, that's the color scheme. That's the way I want this colored, that kind of vibe. Here's a sample page. And I paid, paid a good price for them to do it. And then it comes back absolute garbage. And when I asked, like, I wanted it to look like this, like, what's the miscommunication here? Like, oh, sorry, I didn't color that page. I only did the lettering on that page. And I'm like, it's in your coloring portfolio. But I hit this so many times where people would have artwork in there they were portraying as theirs that they had nothing to do with. Sometimes the same artwork over and over again in people's portfolios. And I don't understand what the grift is here, because eventually, if you get a job, they're going to know you can't do it when you start turning in pages. But I'm glad I paid for
it that far ahead. They didn't think that far ahead. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
I think I literally got the ridiculous amount of good luck when I was looking around and found who I found. Because my interior artist, Julia Galazzi, I had seen her work on it because she did like a previous Marvel book kind of showcasing some of the more underrepresented characters. I think it was like Photon or whatever it may be. And I was like, oh, that was cool. Her art's interesting. And what I didn't realize when I worked with her, how professional she was, because I think she's from Sicily. So she went to school like for art and for comic art specifically there. And she loves the medium. She's a student of it. So when we went into like paying for it, she sent me a contract. I was like, oh, contract. I had only like just in like cash apps, whatever it may be, the artist or cover artist at that point, but she was like very professional and treated me like how she would treat Marvel, Dark Horse, whatever it may be. So I got to understand, okay, this is how things should go versus me just being very much so casual about the interactions. And she's on it. Like I legit with this particular book, she will legit turn out a page like Monday through Friday, like every day, just about. She'll take her weekends off. Maybe she works them on the weekends, I don't know. But Monday through Friday, I'm getting a page every day, and she's asked me to look at it. Or like she'll get the full storyboard. I'll give her a change on the storyboard, and she'll get that changed immediately. She is a machine. So I'm like, now I'm spoiled. Now I'm like, damn, do I want to work with anybody else? Because I feel like I hit the jackpot with finding you first. Like you were my first artist I ever found.
Yeah, I'm real spoiled with my flatter. I get so mad when I do a job now that either is such a quick turnaround that I don't have time to send it to her in the Philippines and wait to get it back, or it's just not paying enough, or I'm helping out a friend or something, so I have to do it myself. And I gripe the entire time. Who took this freaking job making me flat this by myself like a caveman? I hate it. I'm spoiled. She does such a great job and saves me so much time. Like I had planned a month and a half for this book I was working on, and I had to hire her in a pinch for like a 5-page short story. And I decided, okay, I'm going to have her help me on this book. I had a month and a half planned to finish this book. I got it done in 12 days. And I was like, oh crap. Yeah, I'm using her from now on. I mean, I make money paying her because I get stuff done so much faster. It's amazing.
No, that's really cool. Yeah. I mean, listen, it is what it is. But listen, right now we're going to pull up Reaper. So, Charlie, do you want me to play this video?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Cool.
I'm going to cringe to hear my voice, but sure.
Reaper issue number 2 is on the way. For everybody that loved issue number 1 and supported, thank you guys so much. But I'm ready to extend this story out in issue number 2 and show you guys a little bit more of who James is, while also introducing new characters. Again, for anybody that is watching this for the first time and is not aware of what Reaper is my debut comic series that I've been writing, and it is going to be involving a lot of dope stuff. If you are fans of like the anime Bleach or even the show Supernatural, think of like a fusion of the two, where I'm going to be playing around with a lot of ideas of God and who God is and how people that are creations of God to go about things. And also the big concept around, responsibilities that are bestowed upon you that you didn't ask for yourself. These are all motifs and topics that are going to be touched on within the full run of Reaper. But issue number 2 is going to see the introduction of 2 really big characters in the story. I won't say who they are just yet, but you guys are going to be amazed when you see them. And I got a lot of time to really work on the dialogue in this issue. A lot of the first issue was a lot of introduction, a lot of action set pieces, and we'll have some action in the second issue, but it's going to be a lot of introduction and really characterizing who James Wright is as a person. So if you guys are interested, thank you guys so much for being interested. But if you want to support this, the Kickstarter is now available. I created a Kickstarter with a couple different levels that offer things ranging from pinup art to exclusive variant covers to even just overall digital and physical copies of the book itself. So to whatever extent you guys want to support, I am thoroughly appreciative. But again, thank you guys so much for being involved in the production of this series, and thank you guys so much for supporting me through this endeavor. Again, me taking on the endeavor of trying to write and create a comic book and tell this story is one that I am blessed to really get the opportunity to do. And again, thank you guys so much for being a part of this journey. And I'm excited for you guys to see issue number 2 and what it has to offer, and even the amazing artists that are a part of making the cover art for this, as well as the usual dope team that I have around creating the interiors and all the other great stuff around it. So thank you guys so much. And please support and read Reaper issue number 2 if you can. Thank you.
Cool. Very nice. All right, cool. So what are we looking at here, Charlie?
So this piece, you just to cover that art in particular, or?
Oh no, I mean just the whole campaign. Like just go through your.
Break it down.
Yeah. So this is the campaign for issue 2. I try not to be greedy. With issue 2 in this campaign, I set a goal that would just cover Julia's interior. Because I'm like, okay, the heftiest part of paying for the books, at least for me, was the interior art for her. Although she's expensive, she's worth it. Like I mentioned before, with the professionalism and how good her art looks. So I was like, you know what? If I can get help with just paying for her, I'll pay for the colors myself. I've paid for a bunch of different cover art already that I kind of had done. Funny enough, this cover here it happened. This is the A cover. It was not the initial A cover. Right. I had a cover that I was going to put on this that I moved to issue 3 to be the A cover because I saw that somebody had liked a post for issue 1. And I was like, I see a check mark. I'm like, who is this? I'm not sure who this person is. And it ended up being, I'm going to butcher his name, Generico Bonacorsi, who is he's a member of Todd McFarlane's production team. So he's worked on some of the Spawn stuff. And I was like, oh my God. When I went into making this book initially, a big inspiration for me was a lot of the Todd McFarlane Spawn type of style, that gothic kind of sharp look. So finding somebody that actually did that look, I was like, hey, bro, I took a shot in the dark. Like, would you be willing to do a cover for me? I would love it, because I also wanted to have a painted cover at some point. These are just things that I read and loved seeing and reading growing up. So I wanted to try to, bring it over to my stuff. He said he was down. Again, it's not cheap, but I'm in love with the cover for it though. And it's great to have literally what your dream book. Like if I literally sat down and thought about all the things that I would make in my dream comic book, and this is it. That's the cover for that. And as far as everything that comes with this stuff, as far as the Kickstarter itself, the first 2 tiers, I think, are literally just supporting it. You get the pinup art. So I'm going to send like a digital pinup art that people get to use for wallpapers, whatever they want to use it for. The second tier is you getting I think issue number 1 along with getting support for getting the second issue. And then the 4th tier, I have a special variant cover I got done by an artist, Don Benjamin. I'm butchering names. I'm horrible at names. But yeah, I trying to be greedy, tried to offer what I felt was a good return on investment for people that wanted to get involved in the series and kind of liked what I had going on. But also, supporting and making sure that I can get this book done without bankrupting myself and being even more poor than I already am.
Yep, I know how that feels. All right, cool. Now, this is the second issue. Like, is the limited series? Are you looking at 4 issues, 6 issues?
No. So again, this is one I'm taking my time with. It's a story that is in partial inspired by my late grandfather. So I storyboarded out, I think, 50 issues in total. Now, this may not be a back-to-back thing. I'm just going to do 50 back-to-back. I may take like a little bit of an hiatus in regards to like a year to work on a different book or whatever it may be. Because I've already storyboarded out like another 5-issue horror series that I want to do at some point. But this is going to be like my thing that I put a lot of my love and life into. So it's going to go, as far as I have now, I think 50 issues like a good thing for me as well. I think when I was doing a lot of research before I even got into the book, I was watching a video on Todd McFarlane, how he handles stuff. And he's talked about in this video in particular that if you want a comic in his mind to have staying power and be talked about for a long period of time, make it 50 issues. That was what his standard was. I don't know how universal that was, but again, Spawn was a big inspiration for me. So I was like, all right, you know what? I can make this into a 50 issue series because I kind of storyboarded it out kind of similar to maybe like anime or manga where they have things in arcs. I'm like, cool, I have this cast of characters and villains, whatever it may be, that this character's gonna have to deal with. I'll set this up in arcs to where every 10 issues or so, he's gonna be dealing with something that's gonna make him grow in a certain way in regards to my main character. So I kind of set it up that manner. Is this gonna be an expensive ass endeavor? More than likely, but it's one that I want to invest into because it's just a passion project at the end of the day.
So since you have 50 issues storyboarded, how are you going to deal with, or are you going to deal with any type of feedback and to change the storyboards, or just, this is how it is, I'm going to stick it, this is what's going to come out?
So the way my mind works in high story, I'm really great at macro writing in regards to world building concepts. So the way I kind of storyboard it out, I know that at the end of each issue, I have a major thing that happens, whether it be an interaction or an event that's going to help progress the story going forward. And then issue to issue, I go in and figure out, okay, how am I going to get to that point? How am I going to make this flow and make sense? So I take the critique from the previous issue and say, okay, what realistically can I change to improve upon this critique without just like rapidly changing everything about my story? Because I'm also of the belief that take criticism, but if you have an original vision for an overall story, don't just change that due to critique you hear in general, because that could just end up being a worse product. Yeah. Biggest example that I can point to is like the newer Star Wars films, where they were changing their entire thing movie to movie, and I ended up in a big mess that was discombobulated.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of the things I was just looking at your reward tiers. Do you still have issue 1 available?
Yes, issue 1 is available on either. Again, if you support this, I'll just like send, because it's gonna be a digital copy, so I'll just email it directly to the backer. But if you want it in physical, you can get it from echelongraphicnovels.com.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the other question. How thick is this? Is it a 32-page comic, 24-page comic? What are we looking at?
So first issue was 24 pages. This issue is going to be 26. Okay. I played around with a lot more dialogue in this, and I was like, ooh, well, you know what? It'll be a little bit more expensive, but I think it's worth it. So it's gonna be around 26. At least 26 like parts of the story. There'll be like different things here and there that kind of like as far as promotional pages. So it may end up being like 28, maybe 30. Regards to like in between the book, you'll have stuff for Echelon, regards to other books that are with the publisher. But as far as like the meat that everybody came for, it'd be 26 pages.
Gotcha. Small piece of advice. I don't know if you can work it out with the publisher. Try to get, if you can get a level in there for issues 1 and 2, that you can back them at the same time and get both issues at the same time, physical. I would advise that, because that is a huge seller. Because
that was half my physical sales on my last Kickstarter.
Right. Because you're going to have a lot of folks come in and like, all right, well, here's issue 2. And you know how people are lazy. They're like, I got to click another button. I got to click another button, go to another site. Come on. You know? Just
kind of packaging everything in that one tier as far as the issue.
Or I could easily see, my first thought would be when I go look, if it's not here and I have to go someplace else to get issue 1, I'll just go there and get issue 1 and maybe hit this up next time. So you would miss a backer here. Definitely, I would see if you could get it on there.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, because I think that'll, trust me, I think it will help you. And when you get it up there, make it your premier level.
Yeah, make it the featured one.
Yeah, make it your feature level. Because then, you know, if I've never seen this before, I'm like, oh, this is a really hot cover, but it's issue 2.
Right? True.
Yeah.
Oh, well, here I can get issue 1 and 2 in a nice little bundle. Okay, yeah. Snap that up.
You know, if you can knock, and that's the other thing, if you can knock off a couple bucks, you know what I mean? You because you're bundling the two of them together, you know, that'll work out. So yeah, very nice. But it's the artwork's incredible. The story sounds really good. I mean, this is a really, really good looking project, man. I wish you're gonna make it, man. You're gonna make it. I like it. I like it a lot.
Appreciate that.
You know, it's a really good looking book. All right. All right. Hold on. Let me pull up the Fishman. What are we looking at? Green Zone.
Yeah, mine's short because it's just the pre-launch page. But
That's for a trade.
we launch till next Wednesday. This is Green Zone Life in the Blocks, where anybody can be born a mutant and you automatically lose your citizenship and all your rights, and you get shoved into the green zones, which are these giant overbuilt ghettos, and polite society forgets about you. And they give you one way out so they can feel good about themselves. If you can prove that you're not a threat to humanity, if you can prove you're one of the good ones and you can serve the greater good for 5 years without using your powers and going to prison or getting killed by, gangs of, mutants with powers and stuff, then if you can survive and not get in trouble and not do anything wrong, then you can get your citizenship and move out and make a better life for yourself. So we end up with a bunch of people that are really poorly equipped to be cops, risking their lives to try and claw their way out of the ghetto. Like Virgil is a giant 8-foot tall lizard monster, and he looks absolutely terrifying, except he's the sweetest, most timid dude in the world. And he doesn't want to fight. He just looks scary. And his only real ability is when he gets really, really scared, his blood pressure shoots up and he sprays blood out of his eyes, which is a really lousy power to have. He got
You say that so nonchalantly.
He got beat up by cops when he was 5 because he scared them and they beat him up. And then he got a felony charge because, you can't beat up a 5-year-old without charging him with something. And the only thing he hates more than the cops is living in the blocks. So he's risking it all to get out. And Bellamy is this little 5-foot tall, 90-pound girl covered in razor sharp quills all over her body. She's a late bloomer. She was perfectly human a couple of years ago, and then her body hair started turning into quills, and she suddenly lost her citizenship, got yanked out of college, her family disowned her, and she got thrown into the blocks with all these scary genomes that she's never been around before. They're scary monsters, and she still doesn't fully realize that she's a scary monster now, and doesn't know how to interact with the people around her, and she's constantly uncomfortable in her own skin. She's always worried about bumping into somebody, because if she bumped into you on the subway, she could go to prison. And in the second issue, her training officer, Waters, the little short lady next to her, grabs her hand in anger and gets pricked by her quills. And Bellamy tells her, you need to get that checked out, but things go bad really quick, and the police station gets bombed by a terrorist attack. And next thing you know, she doesn't get it checked out. And about an hour later, she's nearly dead from the infection. Chaos and carnage ensue. It's crazy, man. Life and death. You don't know who's going to survive, who's going to die. It's something, man. I love this story so much.
Who? I mean, I have this artwork. I mean, who's this Fitch
What
Lee?
kind of tone do we have?
Do what?
Who's this Fitch Lee that drew this?
That's me, man. Where are you getting the C out of? My signature?
Yeah, your signature. Yeah, it looks like a C at the end there. Yeah, this is funny.
Dude, I love your art. I need this. I'm definitely getting this. I love the way this looks.
I appreciate it. I've actually started going faster and faster and getting looser and looser, especially with Green Zone. And I love the sketchiness more as it goes, because it just catches the grittiness of the vibe of this place. And, it doesn't need to be pristine and clean and everything perfect. And everything is overbuilt in this place, because when you don't know who could shoot lasers out of their eyes or fireballs out of their elbows, everything has to be overbuilt. So the cop cars are giant overbuilt tanks so that they can handle an attack. Even the fire trucks look like giant military assault vehicles. Every building is like heavy concrete overbuilt. That's why it's called the blocks, because the apartments that they shove these guys in are these giant overbuilt concrete blocks. And, so they don't get easily destroyed. And it's a miserable place to live. Virgil grew up an orphan here and never had a scrap of clothing he didn't pull out of the dumpster himself, or something to eat that he didn't have to swipe from somebody or pick up off the ground or out of the trash. And the first suit of clothes he has that's actually new and has sleeves that go all the way down his arms is when he gets his jumpsuit that lets him get on the bus to go to work. and because they won't just pick up any genome, you got to be wearing a special jumpsuit. And he has it on for about 5 minutes before one of the gang leaders rips the sleeves off of it. And yeah, he can't win for losing, man.
Nice. How long did it take you to complete
What
this
kind of a
book?
tone do we have?
It's pretty serious. This is the collected first 4 issues, which comes out right now. It's about 172 pages. I'm making a director's cut out of it, so I've re-edited all 4 issues and put it in the order that I really kind of wanted it in, and I'm adding back in several pages of stuff that I took out to hit page count originally. Like there was certain interactions and stuff that just weren't as important if I got to hit that page count, for the publisher. And so now I'm adding that stuff back in. I'm adding in the handbook is going to be at the end of it with new files for all the new characters. There's a tier that you can get where you can be drawn into the book and some of these new pages that I'm adding and get, a file on your character at the end of the book. And I'm adding in like 30 pages of short stories and strips and stuff that I've done other places over the years that feature other characters from this world. So it can kind of help flesh out more of what this world's like from other angles than just these guys' point of view. But yeah, it's really cool. It's a big book, and that's just covering their first shift. Like his first day on the job, the police station gets bombed, and he has to decide, is he going to run back in this burning building to try and save his training officer and potentially go to prison for disobeying orders, or is he going to let his training officer burn to death? And yeah, just lighthearted, fun comic books, like when we were kids.
It gives me like a Suicide Squad type of vibe in regards to like a ragtag group of people.
Mm-hmm. And you find out real quick just how hard it is to earn your citizenship and how few people make it through. But, humanity gets to pat themselves on the back and say, well, they could pull themselves up by their bootstraps if they really wanted to. They don't tell you only like 1 out of 2,000 make it to 5 years on the force. And like the gangs are constantly trying to slip people in to work for them. And it's a terrible job. And if you end up having to deal with humans, they treat you like a mall cop. If you have to deal with other genomes, they treat you like you're a race trader for, putting on a badge. And admittedly, a lot of the people, like the cops that beat Virgil up when he's 5, are other genomes that are just going into the blocks to flex their muscles and feel like big guys and push people around. And so, it's the problem I have had at cons is when I say it's about cops, people automatically, whatever their feelings are about cops, they automatically assume I'm on the other side for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I'm old or what. And they get this attitude and they walk away. And whatever your feelings are about cops, this book is not that. I have been abused by cops. I have nearly been killed by cops because I said yes, sir, to the wrong guy at the wrong time. I also have had cops and sheriff's officers and stuff that I dearly love that are like brothers to me. And I've listened to them tell stories about their day at work that made my blood curdle. This is about how complicated it is for these guys, that it's illegal to be who they are. When society hates you, how much the deck is stacked against you, how many hoops you're willing to jump through to try and make a better life for yourself, and how you can get up every day and try and do the right thing and still be looked at as a monster and a villain. And sometimes you can't win for losing. And that's what this story is about how hard it is for these guys. And hopefully somebody can read this story and see how hard Virgil is working, that he doesn't even have an apartment because he doesn't have family or anything. He's living in a maintenance closet with the mops and stuff just because he's made a little bed in here for himself. And he still gets up and, brushes his teeth and he gets ready for work. And even though the gangs are attacking him and trying to stop him from getting out, and everybody packed in his block hates him, he's still going to try and make it in, even though the human guards want to kick him out because he can't fit the belt around his waist. because he's freaking 8 feet tall, but his training officer ends up putting it around his wrist, so he's not technically out of uniform. And and even when he's saving people's lives in a fire, the people in charge still look at him as a monster and are accusing him he must have been in on it or something, or he's disobeying commands because he's marching back in the fire when you told him to stop. Forget the fact that he dragged 12 people out. That's not what matters. It's
So
how much
when is it launching?
It launches Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on the Roll for Hero art stream on YouTube and Facebook and all kinds of places. Me and my buddy Esteban do it every Wednesday. I
will be there. I want to read this.
Yeah.
I definitely need to read this.
Sounds like a lot of fun. All right, cool. Very good job, Fish. As always. Now, Mr. Torres.
Yes, my little book, 30 Years in the Making. Issue 1 is on sale right now. It's on Crowdfunder. The best thing about Crowdfunder, and I do not work for them, is that once the campaign ends, it stays as a store. So I have a store where people just buy my book whenever they want. And the other thing is that they do not have to be a member of Crowdfunder to buy the book. So you just press a button, buy the book. It's really awesome. It's about 2 warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source. The war finds its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some humans gain abilities. The story was actually written about 30 years ago. I wrote the whole story, 110 pages. My friend from high school, his younger brother, decided to draw the artwork. So he drew it about 20 years ago, and it's inked by Peter Palmiotti. That's Jimmy's brother. And I have a cover by Russ Braun, who draws the boys. And issue 2 is coming out this year. We're actually, I'm working on the cover right now. One of the things I was asking about the cover is that I'm actually going to get a photo cover. My co-host of the radio show, she has cosplay as my character when we performed it as a radio play we performed at New York Comic Con, and she looks enough like the character, so we're going to do a photo mashup with artwork to have a new cover, and that's coming out this year. She's actually already did the first photo shoot, so that's going to be kind of cool. And issue 2 should be coming out in April if everything gets done when it's supposed to. And it's a 5-issue series, ready written, ready drawn. It just has to get published.
That's awesome.
That's dope.
Very nice. Very nice.
I have a question. Since I've never used Crowdfunder before, how does the payment work? Like if I back it, does it charge me right now, or is it later?
Yes,
like Kickstarter?
it's right away. It's right away.
See,
you press it,
cool.
it comes right to me, and I send it to you in a day or 2. Or if you get the digital, I hit the button and boom, it sends right to you.
That's
and like
awesome.
I said, once it's passed, it's a store. So I had this up 2 years now, and you just buy a book whenever you want to.
Oh, cool.
JD, you want to hit that little video? Because I always like to do the self-promotion.
Enjoy the amazing Trauma Presents comic book premiere of Mr. Mark Torres, comic book called Designated. It's going to be an amazing event in 2023.
As I mentioned last time I was on the show, Trauma has agreed to sponsor our book for New York Comic Con. We're going to look to try to get it performed as a radio play for issue 2. We have to wait to get approval for New York Comic Con, but Trauma's already in. So that was kind of cool with them.
Very nice.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, cool. So you said when's issue 2?
Issue 2 should be available for pre-order because I like to make sure I have enough money. Everything's already set before I put it out there, because I really hate to be one of those people that need the money to make the book. I want to have the book before I start selling it.
Right.
So that should be April.
April. All right, cool. Good. Sounds good. Let me know. We'll bring it back. Except it won't be Super Bowl this time. That's
Sure.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll pull up. This is my campaign. This is Dream Reviews, of course. So this is Dream Reviews 1 and 2. This is actually, I've already ran this campaign. This is a kind of a catch-up campaign for anyone who missed it the first time around. So this is issues 1 and 2. The first issue is 48 pages. Second issue is 32 pages, illustrated by Matt Lunsford, written by myself. And the story revolves around 4 kids who, when they go to their role-playing game, they like to play role-playing games, right? So whenever they go to, they wake up in the evenings as their role-playing game characters, and they have these 4 characters, and they fight demons, and the earth is being invaded by them, and these are hung on this little chain right here are the 4 main characters. So this is Mouse, Acrobat, Snowflake, and Armadillo. And mind you, these kids are 8 to 12 years old. That's why their names are a little, they're very childlike. I was just like, all right, let's do something goofy and fun with them. And there's the sort of thing is the sensibility of it's a lot of banter between the kids because they're kids and they're just having fun, but they understand that there's something very serious going on in the world, and they're trying to help out. The other thing is a subplot in the story is that these bodies that they're in, they're not just figments of their imagination. They're actually being pulled. This is a group of characters that are actually being pulled from another dimension. And they actually have an other sentient being, like their consciousness is pushing their consciousness back. And so they have these very high level, high powered figures whose bodies they're taking over to fight demons. And that's what they do in their dimension. And they're like, what is going on? Right. And once in a while, you'll see the main ego come out, and they'll start talking differently. So it's one of those things I was just trying to play around with. So when I was writing it, it was just like trying to work that that composite between the 2 characters. How is one act opposed to another character. So it's something interesting. I thought it was a lot of fun. And then we also have a lot of covers. This is Lena Dye. She always does covers for us. And, like I said, we have some nude covers. We have some regular covers, but we do a lot of covers. I only do 6 of them. This is some of the interior pages. This is by Matt Lunsford. This was a book we had originally done in 92. I remastered it. I relettered the entire thing, and we had it in color because it was originally in black and white. So now it's in full color. So, and there you go. And that's pretty much.
What is it like relettering your stuff?
Now remastering this. Second, let me take this down.
I heard my own feelings doing it.
All right, remastering it was because you have to remember this was done in 92. So all of the lettering that was originally there was glued onto the page, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we scan the original pages because we still have them. So the rubber cement, it turned yellow, right? So you can see the yellow. I don't think Matthew, I love him. He's the artist on the book. He's a great artist. I don't think he knew what a straight edge was. There was not a straight line in the entire damn book. Like I had to redo all the borders, right? Relettering it was fine because since it was already lettered, I already had a template, right? So it was kind of like boom. So I could just figure it, and it worked out. But it did take me a while. It took maybe it took me a month to reletter the whole thing. I do a couple pages a night or whatever. But in the end, I'm very happy with the results because I think it looks way better. I mean, when I showed it to Matthew, he was like, "Whoa, that looks crazy," because he wasn't expecting that. So, yeah. So it was a good process.
Since you were already bound to the story and everything, were you tempted to maybe change the dialogue here, there, a little bit of word change here and there?
All right. First of all, tempted is not even the word. I did that. Because I'm that's one of the things. I constantly noodle with my work. So if I even with Oswald, right? If I go through it and I'm looking at it and I see a mistake or I see something that could be a little bit tighter, I'll fix it in the file, and it's all digital. So we'll just pop it in there, and like maybe the next trade will be a little different than the ones that came out 6 months before, But I look at it like this: it's all about trying to improve the work. Right. Mm-hmm. So you just try to keep improving that work just a little bit at a time, But yeah.
How very George Lucas of you.
I mean, I don't know if he improved his work, but I can speak for myself.
In his mind, he improved it.
Well, sometimes that's what that is. Sometimes, when we do these vanity projects, it just has to be in the mind. What is it? So who was next? Was it me? I think it was me.
Yeah, that's it. It's up to you. Bring us
All
home.
right. All right. So here's a question for you guys.
Mhm.
Why did you choose indie comics over another medium?
I know.
So it was a bucket list thing for me. I think 3 years ago, I sat down and legit thought about all the different creative avenues that I was passionate about, and I felt like I could develop a solid skill set of doing. One was the YouTube thing, because again, I grew up a YouTube baby like this. I would watch more YouTube than I did shows at a certain point. I just enjoy the medium and the video essays, all that good stuff. So like I got into that first and fell in love with like writing video essays initially and all that good stuff that came with that. I was also a big comic fan and then was reading and still collecting at that point in time. But I didn't know, like, the whole concept of making a comic book seemed very like a distant goal. Like I just didn't have the ability to do so until I met my good friend Ethan Murphy, who had been doing it for a while, and he was able to teach me a lot about, how to communicate with certain artists, how to reach out, where to find them, different things like that. And he could have provided me all of the artists, the letterers, whatever I needed for the book, because he just had the connections. But I'm hard headed, and I was like, I don't want to feel like a nepotism baby. I want to do it myself. I think the one thing I did take from it, he provided me with a letterer and a colorist because I was being very indecisive. And he recommended to me, I fell in love with immediately when I saw their work. But everything else, I was like, no, I got to do this myself. I got to reach out to people myself. But I went with the medium because comics as a whole, and then I think it started with like the animated series stuff from like DC, but the comics as a whole was something that really influenced me and how I saw the world in regard, especially when it comes to like representation of, again, me being a Black man. At that point, I didn't see too many people that looked like me in stories being told at that point. So when I did see it, it meant a lot for me to see that. So as the older I got, I'm like, okay, I want to tell stories that are representative of my journey and all. It's kind of like a love letter in a way to the medium that helped create me and build me up to be who I am now. So it was going to happen one way or the other. I was going to be broke, rich, whatever it may be. These comics was getting made.
All right. Cool. Mr. Fish.
I've always loved the medium. I was screwed when the first episode of Scooby and Scrappy Doo came out, and they had to save a comic book creator from his creation come to life. And when I saw that you could have an actual office and it could be your day job to get paid to draw comic books, I was done for. I was a lost cause. But also, like, I'm a storyteller at heart. That's what I love most. And comics lets me tell stories and draw, which I happen to be decent at, and I can do it all. And it's the easiest thing for me to do because I can do it all myself. I actually like really love sculpture, and I used to be a pretty talented sculptor, but like I spent 15 years in a wheelchair, and most of that time I couldn't walk, talk, or see most of the time because of my really severe neurological disorder. And I'm doing great now comparatively, but when I started getting a little bit control back over my body and realized I might be able to start doing some work, I was really torn between, like, do I start a YouTube channel doing sculpture and, sculpt superheroes and whatever the latest movie is, and hope I get big enough quick enough to either get monetized or start taking commissions and make money that way, or do I take a shot in the dark and start trying to do indie comics, which is what I always wanted to do anyway. And I had to build a freelance career over from scratch again. So when it came down to it, comic book pages store flat and sculpture takes up a lot of room. So that was a deciding factor in why I threw my hat in the ring for comics again. And this time it worked. But the whole world's different now than the last time I tried. And you're not stuck to who's in your hometown to work with. I wasn't stuck trying to use the local newspaper printer to print comics, and they would only do it if it was 5,000 print run. And so, now I can work with people around the world. I could get hired by people around the world to work on their projects. And there's Kickstarters where everybody can come along and help fund it and get it done. It's not just one rich guy paying somebody to do it. And now it was easy. I started sharing my stuff on social media, and next thing you know is my full-time job. Now I pay the mortgage and credit card bills and stuff drawing muscle men in their underwear beating each other up, which is, pretty fun stuff. It's better than digging a ditch.
This is true. This is true. All right, cool. Mark, what are your thoughts?
Always wanted to be in comics ever since I was a kid. The Amazing Spider-Man TV show, the old one, I used to watch it growing up. I was like, I want to do that. And as a kid, I did not know that the artist and the writer were two different people. I thought that was the one who did everything. As I got older, I learned that. I went to a comic book school in Manhattan. It was at the New York Academy of Comic Book Arts and Fantasy Illustration. And that's where I had your realization, Mr. Calderon, that I can't draw, seeing everybody else's, but I can write. And so then it was, how do I get my story out there? And it was, at the time, this was the 90s, they were like, if you only had $2,000, you can make your own independent comic book. I was like, I could do that. Apparently, I couldn't do that. But I was able to network and grow, and that's how I got the radio show, which was to help me get into the book. And since I finally got it printed in 2023, 3 years ago, the plan worked. It just took way longer than I had expected. But now as it's easier to get stuff done, issue 2 is not taking me 30 years to do. It only took me 3.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Let's see. For myself, it's funny. Like, obviously, I grew up on reading comics. I started probably when I was 8 years old or something, if not earlier. But really enjoyed it. But the thing I remember the most when I was a kid is walking into this comic book shop that we had called Super Snipe, right? And Super Snipe was about a mile away from my house. I lived in Spanish Harlem, and I would walk to that place, right, which was on 82nd, 83rd, somewhere around there, on 2nd Avenue. And I would walk over there, sometimes with a friend, sometimes by myself, because the addiction was real. So it was the first time I saw my first indie comic, right? Because I was already collecting Daredevil, I was collecting X-Men, I was collecting the Avengers, I was doing all that stuff, right? But then I saw Jack Kirby's Captain Victory, right, from Pacific Comics. And I was like, and that blew my mind because I didn't know anybody else but Marvel or DC could do comics, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, that's crazy. And I picked it up and I bought it, and I continued. Then eventually it turned out, I ran into Elementals. I ran into Continuity Comics, Neil Adams' old company. Right?
Oh, I love those so much.
Yeah. I mean, listen, those stories were terrible.
Oh, yeah.
But they were beautifully illustrated. They're beautifully illustrated.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I remember when I was going to school in Brooklyn, you would ride on the subway to get there, and they would have these huge posters. And I thought several movies were coming out. And it was Neil Adams Continuity Comics had taken out advertisements in the subways. So you would see these huge armor and megalith posters. And it was like, what the hell is that? And I didn't know what it was.
How cool the design is armor, man. That is such an awesome freaking design.
Exactly. And then you got Silver Streak, his brother, and you got Miss Mystic. And eventually I walk into a comic book store and there it is, or there they are. And I'm like, whoa. And I start picking those up, Then eventually the black and white boom hits and all that stuff. And and pretty much from the point I saw Jack Kirby stuff and I realized I could tell my own stories, that's when I wanted to get into comics. Because, there was probably a small window in the 90s after I finished working professionally for a couple of years where I knew several people where I could have begged them to say, yo, take me up to Marvel, introduce me to a couple of these editors, I'll pitch, right? And I'll show off the work that I've already done. And I might have gotten in there, but I have no freaking interest in writing Spider-Man. None.
I mean, it would be fun for a minute.
Yeah, for a minute.
There's so many people that want to draw Spider-Man. Let them. I want to tell my stories, and nobody else is fighting to do that. So.
Right. And like I said, I mean, if I got offered the job, I wouldn't spit on it, right? but I don't know if I'd be like, all right, well, let's talk, right? And then we would go from there because, Tenchi Muyo, which was one of the projects I worked on back in the 90s, I didn't know what that was when they presented it to me. They were like, "Here you go," and they handed me a bunch of VHS tapes, and I watched them. I binge watched them in 2 days, and boom, and I wrote a 6-issue limited series for it, right? But that was that, But I think I was more enamored with that because I didn't know what it was, right? It was something like totally new. It was like a brand new frontier for me. It was just like, boom, there it is, and just to show everyone.
So where did the film school come into play? Where was that at?
Just to show everyone, the reprint just recently came out. So
That's sick.
The stuff I did back in the 90s, a group of guys got together. They did a Kickstarter. It was helped out by myself and the artist Matthew. And yo, man, I mean, it came out really, really nice. So it was really cool. But yeah.
So where did the film school fit into this story?
That came later. That came later. Film school was I was in my early 30s, and I was working a day job, and I was like, I don't know about this day job thing. So I took 2 years off, and during those 2 years, I went to film school and I did a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I would have loved to work in films too, and YouTube has been awesome for that, to be able to make films and stuff and make short films, and that it's my storytelling and sculpting and prop making and all the other things that I like to do. But when it comes down to it, like, you have to get other people involved, you have to schedule it with people, you have to find people that can actually act and people that are willing to help with lighting and cameras and all that stuff, and it just becomes a bigger process than, for me, I can just sit down in a room and knock out a story. And so that's a much easier way to go. I only have to bother myself. I don't have to orchestrate everybody else getting together to do it. So
yeah, I mean, that's the one thing with film, is that when I got involved in it, I didn't realize how many people it takes just to make a 10-minute thing. I was like, there was me, I got a light guy, a sound guy, not even to mention all the actors, And I called every friend I had. A mutual friend of ours, David Cules. He was in one of my short films, right? And I mean, and I
want to see it.
I got it somewhere. Yeah, I could pull it up sometime. But it's one of these things where it's like you have so many people that are involved, right? You got second unit, first unit. Then when you have to sit down and edit the damn thing, there's never been a bigger time sink in my life than editing. I would sit down at noon and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to edit for a few hours and go have dinner. Midnight rolls around and I'm still, you don't even realize. You're just sitting there, click, 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 But it was a lot of fun, though. I mean, I did have a lot of fun doing it, though. That's the only thing, but it's expensive, because even if you're not paying the artists, I mean the actors, some of them will comp you, especially if you're a film student, they'll comp you the time or whatever. But you still have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to build a set. You have to build a set, and you have to buy all the stuff to build a set. And all that. I think I spent $1,000 on a 10-minute movie, or $1,500 on a 10-minute movie. And I mean, I don't even remember what I bought, but I don't remember it being much. But I spent like $1,500.
Oh man, I blew $200 on a fun little short film with my kids I was making when they were little, and I was working on some props at one point, and I remember yelling at my son, and they were like 4 or 5 or something at the time. I had built them jumpsuits to be space rangers. I'd made freaking a prop of the spaceship for them to be in with the joystick and stuff, so I could green screen behind them and have the 3D ships flying by. And I was doing all this stuff, and I was working really hard on this stuff. And I remember yelling at my son because I was working on a prop and he was bugging me, asking me a question about some silly thing kids ask. And I remember thinking, okay, wait a minute, this isn't fun anymore. I just yelled at my kid. So I was like, I'm going to put this away for a week or two. Ended up being like 2 months. And then I'm like, okay, let's go back to little shits didn't fit in their costumes anymore. They grew. And I was like, I'm done. I don't wait until they grow up more. And
Yeah.
you know, now they have kids.
Yeah, I was the way it would work is they would set us up in teams in film school, right? So there would be like 5 of us, and then we would round robin each other's projects, right? So one guy would be the camera guy one day, and then the other guy would be a director, and then so on and so forth. But there was this one guy, he was hilarious. He was an older guy. He was probably my age now when I was back then, like in my early 30s. He's probably my age now. He was in his mid to late 50s. So he was a professional photographer, right? So he knew how to handle a camera. But I remember one morning I was his camera guy for that day, and I call him up and I said, "Yo, man, where are we meeting?" And he says, "We're gonna meet here." He says, "I'm here with the girls, right? And we're picking out bras and panties for the shot." He's like, "I love my job." Yeah, his name was Hal. He was an awesome dude. I haven't heard from that dude in forever. I hope he's doing all right. He was a cool dude. It's funny as all hell. All right, Mark, you got one last question or a softball? Mark?
Oh, there he is.
Softball question. I always like this one. Is it better to have people buy your book or read your book? I always love that one. Softball.
The artist in me wants to say.
Can
can you hear me? Am I still here?
No, you're good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The artist in me wants to say read, because I feel like I had the excitement of like getting the first sale. I'm like, oh my God, somebody bought my book. But when somebody told me, like, because initially I was doing this thing where I was like reaching out to different creators I knew to be like, hey, or even creators I did know, would you mind, giving the book a read? If you liked it, maybe you say a thing about it. If not, you don't have to ever speak about it. And one guy came back to me, he's like, hey man, your book made me cry. I'm like, make you cry? He's like, yeah, I loved the emoted like near this particular part of the book, and he was breaking it down for me. And something about that almost made me want to cry.
Oh yeah.
My book was able to emote them, because we've all like watched a movie or read something that's made us feel a certain type of emotion. So the fact that something I did generated that kind of emotion out of somebody else made me feel that much more vindicated about who I was as a writer. Because I was definitely in that first script, like very much so overthinking everything. I edited like 15 times. This is my first script. I don't know really if this is what it's supposed to look like, whatever it may be. But hearing feedback about how much they enjoyed it, even criticism about them not enjoying certain parts, it made me feel very special, because it showed that somebody gave my book time, which is more like to ask for anything else. Just like actually reading it, like not just scrolling through the pretty pictures, but actually reading the story I wrote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I picked up a little 12-page black and white indie book from like a local artist at a Memphis comic book shop when I was up there for a con. And that thing made me cry in 12 pages, like ugly cry, early on a Sunday morning. I mean, I had to find the guy. I had to look him up and find him, friend him, and then message him and fuss at him for making me cry that early in the morning, man. It made my eyes hurt. But yeah, it's awesome to hear that kind of stuff from people. I absolutely want to make sales, because ultimately this is my day job. But I would say read the book, because like I freely give away like Alice issue 1 digitally to sign up for my email list, because I know 9 times out of 10, if you actually read it, you're going to enjoy it and you're going to come back for more. And so I'm happy to let them read that for free and get them on board. Maybe they'll pick up the next one and the one after that and come back and buy the whole freaking library like a lot of people do.
All right, cool. Wow. See, I've been at this a long time. So initially, my initial answer at the beginning would always be, I want someone to read it, right? Now, I know they're going to read it. So, but I really do need the sales, because I have to pay the artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the artists have to be fed, and the money I generate from whatever from the copious amounts of campaigns that I do, it all goes back to the artists. This is, I run my situation like a business, right? but it is a very expensive hobby, but I do run it like a business, and because of that, my artists, I can't just tell them like, well, you're not going to be able to, I don't know, feed your kids this week because I can't pay you because I didn't sell a book. So yeah, I need to sell. I need to sell. I mean, I want people to read it, and I know if I sell the book, they will read it. But if I have to make that decision now, I have too many people relying on me to make money. I have too many people relying on me to make rent, feed their kids, that I have to make money. It's crazy, because I mean, the artist in me says, yeah, I want everybody to read my work, but I also give away a good portion of it too. So it's like, you sign up for my newsletter and I'll send you 3 free PDFs. So it's like, there's plenty of work there to be read for free, but I really, really do need the sales. It's crazy because, like Fish said, is like, he's paying a mortgage.
Yeah.
Right.
And boy, they want that money on the first. It doesn't matter what anybody else feels about it. It doesn't matter if production got delayed at the publisher or anything. They want that money on the first. The bank is real inflexible about that.
Right. And I know how it feels. I'm pretty sure you like having a roof over your head.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh yeah, my wife's a big fan of it. Big fan of it. Not a camper. Not a camper. Just like it.
There you go. I never knew a wife who wasn't.
And you don't think about that, but like, I had a client that I had a job booked for December, and the client at the last minute was like, you know what, let's bump that to sometime next year. Christmas is coming. And I was like, I was aware. I'm used to it coming in December, and I had planned around that and was like planning on, I don't know, paying the mortgage and buying my wife a Christmas present. But sure, yeah, okay. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. It's their money. But when he pulled that job at the last second, all the other jobs I turned down for 6 months because I was booked for December, they're all booked because they found artists months ago. And now, not only does that put me in a bind, but now like I can't pay my flatter because she was going to flat this book and now she doesn't have a job. And that it has ripples.
Yeah. All right, Mark, answer your own question.
So just a FYI, for some reason I'm lagging a little bit, so just in case I'm a little behind. But for me, originally when issue 1 came out, I wanted people to read the book. I really did. Read my book. Now, because I want to get the rest of the issues out, you got to buy my book.
Yeah, you're in our boat. Well, welcome to the USS Indy. All right, I want to answer this question, if you guys don't mind, real quick. Action Pack asks, do you think it's better for indie comics writers to focus on single characters or multiple characters / teams? So what do you guys think?
I am still very green to this, but one thing I've done is, again, continuing to read as many comics as possible to see what I can take from different writers and what works. And certain people are just really skilled at packing a lot of stuff into 1 or 2 issues. I am a huge fan of Doug Wagner, who's doing he's doing a lot of horror stuff with Image right now. I think he has another book coming out like next month. He normally does 5-issue series. Like most of his stuff that he's done with Image and he's built the entire mini serial killer universe, 5 issues a piece, and they're all amazing. And I'm like enthralled with your ability to work on so many characters in a series, but only be 5 issues. And in my mind, like it flows well. Some people have that special talent because again, to develop multiple characters in that short, or even in a short amount of time, or even if you want to do it long, just developing multiple characters in general and making them all be actual people and not feel like a plot device or just something that's just there to look pretty, it's difficult. So at least for me, if you're starting out, I'll probably recommend 1 character at a time just to kind of get your feet going. But if you're a veteran like these guys, you could probably do 25 characters in a book. I don't know. That's just from my perspective as being as green as I am now.
Mr. Fish.
For me personally, I'm I'm really creative, and I do a show every Wednesday with my buddy Esteban, and we roll up random prompts and we design new characters on the spot. And every single week, we get all kinds of great ideas, and the fans are kicking out ideas, and that spurs more ideas. And now all of a sudden, we got 3 new books that we want to do, and I can't freaking do that. I want to do it, but I can't do it because I have books that I have to get done. And I watched a lot of other small creators that were like, "Oh, we're doing this book and this book and this book and this book," and I was like, "Okay, well, I can do that because I have lots of ideas. I have lots of stories I could tell." So I started telling this book, and when things didn't go quite as fast at that publisher as I was hoping they would do, then I jumped over and started doing the Mighty Caw because I could do that myself and put that on Kickstarter. And I started doing my anthology book Fish Tales, and that had a bit of Alice Lost in Wonderland in it, which is a story I've been waiting 50 or 30 years to tell. Sorry. And then I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was like, "Dude, you're doing too much. You're going in too many directions." He's like, "Where do you want to be headed? And you need to start marching that way." And I was like, "Oh, but they're all," and he's like, "No, they're not all going to the same place. All of these things are going out to different people that are interested in different things. I wasn't getting everybody backing all of those books. There's a lot of people that back everything I do, but not everybody wanted a bloody bird barbarian killing his way across the galaxy that this gritty, grounded cop drama with an 8-foot tall lizard monster in it. It doesn't always cross over 100%, but he was like, you need to do one thing that people can remember you for, because people only got so much room. We're not big shots. We're not Marvel. We're not taking up that big a chunk of somebody's memory. We got a little bitty pocket in somebody's brain, and it can only fit so much. And if you do too much, they can't remember it. But if I'm the guy that does Alice Lost in Wonderland, that's an easy thing to remember. Oh, Fish does Alice. And that's the story that I love all my stories, but that's the one I've been waiting 30 years to tell. And I could tell it for the rest of my life if it kept selling. If it quit selling, I can move over to something else. I'm only back on Green Zone right now because I really want to do the trade and be able to put it all in the order I want and add the stuff in that I had to cut out and have the one complete thing with all of the awesomeness in it and be able to have that to sell. And here's my story that I wanted to tell you in the first place. I would highly recommend for anybody to do one thing and keep telling it, because all those guys I was trying to emulate have like 20 first issues and no second issues of any of those stories. They keep starting new things and they never finish anything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy. And then the people that I look up to that are really doing something have just been grinding out one series over and over again, like Boston Metaphysical Society, over and over again for years until she built up this huge following for it. And now she can spread out and do other things because there's a bunch of people that love her stuff and have been following her. When I'm trying to get my feet planted and I'm trying to start to, hoe a row, but every time I keep changing directions, I ain't getting anywhere. But now, if I had just told this story from the beginning and been brave enough to tell it, I would be 20 issues down that story. Or if I'd just done my own stuff instead of doing everybody else's books, I'd be 131 issues down this storyline right now instead of 131 into everybody else's books. And that would be pretty epic. But, I'm going to get started now and make that correct.
All right, cool. Mark, what are your thoughts?
It depends on what he means by better. Better for the creator or better for the audience? I think you should just focus on the strengths. So if you're good at writing single characters, write a single character. If you're good at writing an ensemble, write an ensemble. I will throw this to the Superman movie. James Gunn, in my opinion, can't write a single hero story. He has to write an ensemble cast, and that's what he did. Play to your strengths. It makes it better. If it's better for you, that's what I think you guys should do.
All right, cool. For myself, I would always tell someone it depends how many voices you have in your head, right? The more voices you have in your head, the more characters you want to have on the paper, okay? To release those voices, you got to get those demons out somehow. Coming from a role-playing game background, that's why I did something like Tall Tales, where I have like 7 lead characters and like you know, a dozen and a half background characters, right? And they're constantly interchanging and it's moving around. And like 4 or 5 plots moving at the same time. But it had to do with the fact that I was accustomed. This is how we played role-playing games back in the day. It was crazy. It was like there were 6 or 7 of us, and we would just come up with these convoluted, insane plots, and it was just constantly grinding these characters, right? So for me, that was like normal, right? And as far as like, you know, single characters, right? I have the Oswald Chronicles, technically a single character, but that one was always more difficult because I was so used to grinding out, you know, bigger stories with more characters. So that's why, like something like Dreamweavers, I have the main set of kids, I have their alternate reality counterparts, and then all the background stories that go along with them. So it ends up being very, very much larger than I initially wanted. So yeah. So I would just say,
that's going to your strengths. That's going to what's easier for you to write. Like I love the interpersonal conflict and connections and interactions and jokes and stuff of you know, having people that can play off of each other and different personalities.
Yeah. All right, cool. Gentlemen, this has been awesome. We made it to hour 2. This was great. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with Charlie. Charlie, where can we find you and your work, sir?
Yeah, as far as the just what I generally do is Cap Diesel 24 at everything, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be. And as far as Reaper, you can find issue 1 on echelongraphicnovels.com. Well, you'll be able to find issue 2 there when that drops. But the Kickstarter, like I said before, is out. Currently, the book is in production. We're on page like 22 out of the 26 in the inking phase now. So we're getting through that pretty quickly. Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. You can find me everywhere.
All right, cool. Mr. Fish.
I am Mr. Fish Comics everywhere you would want to find me. And go mrfish.com. The short link will take you directly to my new project that I'm working on, whatever that is. So right now, that's the pre-launch page for Green Zone, which goes live Wednesday on my show, Roll for Hero, with the number 4 in the middle. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. We're going to be designing up new characters for Green Zone.
All right, cool. Mark.
So you go to www.itcamefromtheradio.com. We are broadcasting every Sunday on WGBB, Long Island's oldest radio station. That's 12:40 a.m. with simulcast on 95.5 FM. We're also on digital radio stations such as sci-fi.radio. We're also on 45 different podcast places, so just Google It Came From the Radio. My book Designated is on crowdfunding right now. A book about 2 warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source or finds its way to planet Earth as results in humans gain abilities. And also want to mention that on this Wednesday at the East Middle Public Library in East Middle, New York, Long Island, we're going to have our 101st live show with an independent actor and author, and we will be giving away free tickets to the Long Island Convention of Horror, as well as raffling off a copy of their book. So for more information, go to www.eastmiddle.info, but just Google It Came From the Radio. You'll be able to find us.
Awesome.
Very nice. I'm JD Calderon. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, DeviantArt, all under JD Calderon. And Sunday nights right here, sometimes with Mark, sometimes with Fish. Hopefully, again, sometime with Charlie. We'll see.
Absolutely.
Right? And just remember, everybody, please check the show notes. In the show notes are the links to all of these campaigns and all of these creators' works. And please click those links. Pick up these books. All of these creators, they're putting their heart and souls in these books. So please go check them out. They're great books. And just remember, everyone, read more indie comics, especially ours. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.